All right, I'm back. Hold on, let me scroll this back down or up. I'm here to do a video on my language goals. Um, and I also have a study plan which I've created. Um, I'll say more on that when I get to it. So for now, um, my personal language goal, so I don't know how much you would care about this, but it'll lead into my study plan. So I've updated this as of today, this morning, 9/4/24. That's the day I'm filming, and that's today. Okay, so I speak English natively. I'm a native English speaker. I grew up in America since the age of 6, and English is my dominant language. But up until 6 years old, I was a Spanish speaker exclusively, like it's my first language. But I've slowly started to forget Spanish, but I can still speak it. Lo puedo hablar y hablo regular o bien, pero no como nativos. Anyway, so that's my Spanish. So this is my background, my language background, because it's going to help. It's going not going to help, but it's going to influence what languages I can learn more or less easily, given what I have as far as language background. Okay, so my right now I am studying Japanese. That's the exclusive focus, not the exclusive focus. That's like I say here, roughly 80% of my time is devoted to studying Japanese, and 20% of my time is to studying Latin. Now, again, background, I have a year, almost a year, not a year. I didn't finish my last quarter of Latin. I took Latin 1 quarter system, Latin 2 quarter system, and I did well. And then I took Latin 3, but I dropped out because yeah, I just stopped studying and I wasn't about to get a low grade in that class. It's a 5-unit class, I think, or a 4-unit class. Anyway, so I dropped Latin 3, which roughly put me at, we were using Wheelock's Latin grammar, I think somewhere in the 30s, right? Something in the chapter 30, 32, but it doesn't matter. That was over 20 years ago. And I really haven't been doing much Latin since then. So it's mostly forgotten. But when I see charts, when I see declension charts, they look very familiar to me. And it wouldn't be a matter of too much hard work to start like memorizing those charts again, and declension charts, conjugation charts, and some vocabulary, and especially because vocabulary always came a little bit easy to me because of my Spanish background. Okay, so and then Japanese, I know greetings. I know like konnichiwa, o genki desu ka, genki desu, ohayo gozaimasu, o yasumi nasai, hajime mashite, things like that, right? Just general phrasebook stuff, and not very far either. Um, and I don't read Japanese. I just use the Romaji. My goal is to speak Japanese. Maybe in the future, if I want to start reading the hiragana, katakana, and especially like the kanji, I might, but that's after I become somewhat fluent in the language. Okay, but again, that's not part of the plan right now. Just speaking the language would be amazing. Okay, so moving on. Yeah, so I say here, I'm just gonna learn Japanese. And the way I'm learning Japanese, I'm spending a lot of the time using the Romaji books with the Romaji, and I'm studying grammar right now. Um, I make no claims that this is the best way or even a good way to learn a language, but it's what I enjoy doing. So, and it does help. Obviously, it's going to help. Like so, this is my plan right now. I've been doing this for like a couple of weeks. Today I got a new book. It's going to be my main text, but I have another book that I've been using that I'll show you. I'll show you the books, the 2 books that I'm relying on mostly. Okay. Actually, right now I'll talk about it, as you can see. My textbook for Japanese is Easy Japanese. This just came in the mail. This book right here. What I looked at this on Amazon at the View or View Now page. It has Romaji. It has a lot of greetings and introductory grammar. Has dialogues that are like graded reader kind, like they're for your level, beginning level, and they slowly progress you. And you have exercises, And so, like, yeah, it's like a textbook, um, but very much geared to, I think, the self-learner, right? This is what appealed to me. This book, I think, is good for the self-learner, and like it does have it does have the hiragana, katakana, and kanji, but alongside it or right below it, it has the romaji. So um, I recommend this book, but given it's just through looking through it and looking for the things that I was looking for, and it has those things, but I haven't used it. Obviously, this just came in the mail today. Okay. The other book that I've been using, which I like, which is kind of along the same thing, it's less it's less so dialogues and more so just sentences, but a lot of repetition, vocabulary, very small bites, piecemeal, little by little. This book is 50 chapters long. It's only like 215 pages, but it's 50 chapters long. That means the chapters are 4 pages long. And so you get like a handful of vocabulary. Like initially you'll get like maybe like 10 words and then like 15 sentences. And so that obviously those words are going to repeat, and then you get used to those 15 words, you get used to those 15 sentences, you see the sentence patterns, you know what they mean, those sentences mean, you can read them. Okay, you haven't memorized them, you can't produce them on your own. Then later you get more in the same chapter, you get more vocabulary, maybe even double what you initially got. So maybe you get like 8 to 10, maybe like 10 more, maybe, and then more sentences that in English that you have to change into Japanese. But it's all doable. I'm on chapter 4 and I'm managing this. Yeah, so it's not super difficult because it's a lot of repetition and it's little by little. So this book is by Naganuma Naoe, First Lessons in Japanese. As you can see, this book was published in 1952. 1952. So it's a little bit outdated. It teaches you how people used to speak, but it's still close enough in to modern times that it knows how the language has been changing. And so it tells you, like, it'll tell you, like, this is the way Japanese used to be spoken, on occasion. Like, and then, but now people are not doing it this way anymore. They're doing it this other way. Okay, so at least I have a couple of examples that I've read like that. All right, so that's my Japanese. For Latin, and oh, by the way, I take notes when I do. Like, I almost transcribe book. I almost transcribe the whole book, but I obviously I pick, like, so for example, here's my notebook, and like let's skip the first page. The first page is my drawings, which nobody needs to see. Okay, it's not vulgar or anything, it's just bad. Yeah, so I will take a bunch of notes. Right, I will take a bunch of notes, and like you can see, like if I flip the pages, can I flip the pages? Like next 2 or 3 pages, more notes, and so on, and more notes. I write a bunch. And I find that writing helps me learn. So, yeah. Okay. Now back to Latin. Latin is my textbook, and you can't really see it. And yeah, it's an old book. This is the book actually, and even the pages starting fall out, at least from the beginning. But I have the page that matters here. It's this book, this page. It's Collar and Daniel's First Year Latin, and this book is from 1901, right? And since Latin is a dead language, you are up to date. But this book also is piecemeal in a way I thought I wouldn't enjoy, because I like grammar and I don't mind getting like the first, like for example, the word puella in Latin is the first declension noun, right? And ends with an A, and you conjugate it: puella, puellae, puellae, puellam, puella, puellae. No, puella again. Okay, and then in the plural it's puellae, puellarum, puellis, puellas, puellis, puellae. In this book, you won't get all of that declension chart in one chapter. Like in Wheelock's Latin, which is where I learned from, you get all of it in the same chapter. In this book, it'll give you the nominative case, so how you use it as a subject. Then later you'll get the accusative case, how you use it as a direct object, then the genitive case, and so on. So you won't get the whole declension at one time. You'll get it in the nominative case, and then you'll see a bunch of uses in the nominative case. You'll get it in the accusative case, and then you see a bunch of uses in the accusative case. And as long as you're not too impatient, it's a perfectly legitimate way to learn the language, and it's a good way to learn the declension. Okay, but that's not to say you have to stick exclusively to this way. If you're like, oh, I need to know the whole declension, then look it up. Just use ChatGPT and look it up. But then follow along with the exercises in this book, and the explanations are really nice. And again, you're getting vocabulary little by little. It's not overwhelming you. Like, you're not like some books give you like 30, 40 vocabulary words in first each chapter. I'm like, by the time you get to chapter 2, you're done. You're like, I'm not learning 30 vocabulary words first before I get into the grammar, before I can read what it says here. So anyway, but that's just my thing. So very good book. But I will ultimately transition Wheelocks. This is the 7th edition. I think this is the latest edition. I recommend you use the 3rd and 4th edition. The 3rd and 4th edition does away with like all of the graphics, all of the cultural notes. Well, not all of the cultural notes, but most of the cultural notes, most of the stuff on like yeah, just like historical stuff that you don't really care about, like, oh, this famous woman in Greece, or this or graffiti in Greece. I'm like, okay, that's interesting, but I want language right now, right? I'm focusing on the language. Give me the language, right? So the older versions are much thinner than this book, but you're really not learning any less grammar. You're not learning any less Latin. So to me, yeah, the 3rd edition or the 4th edition are very good, and you can pick them up cheap on eBay, and then you can also get the workbooks for those. Okay. Latin accompanied usually by the 38 Latin stories. But I'll get to that once I get back to Latin. But that's after I finish the Collar and Daniel's first year Latin. Okay, that's it for my study sources, really. Other than, I have many study sources, but these are the main. These are the main. And as far as textbooks, I enjoy learning from textbooks because of the structure, and because I enjoy grammar, so it helps. But again, I'm not claiming that this is the best way to learn the language. I'm just saying this is the way I do it, and I enjoy doing it, and I'm going to continue to do. And then we'll see what results it produces later as far as Japanese, and again, maybe my Latin. Okay, now, now I have language goals, meaning like I want to become like, and the word polyglots. I just want to learn to speak many languages. I guess that's qualifies as polyglot, but and I just really want to reach a like a B1 level. I think like a conversational level where I'm comfortable in the language. I don't need to be like, yeah, I don't need to have such a proficiency that I can work in that country using that language. But I think that once you reach a B1 level and you're still using that language and you're still like growing your language, let's say, you're going to naturally go up levels. So anyway, so now let's get to my personal language goals. So English is language 1, Spanish is Latin language 2, Japanese I'm hoping to be language 3, and Latin will be my 4th language, albeit it's just going to be a reading and translating language. Okay, now my other goals. So the languages I have on deck, I'm calling them, right? The languages that are up next, and I'm fairly sure these are going to be the languages, whether in order 5 and 6 or 6 and 5, I don't know yet. So Bulgarian, which is a South Slavic language. It uses the Cyrillic script. And let me shrink this. Let me enlarge this like this. Yeah. And it has 9 million overall speakers, not necessarily in Bulgaria, but overall. Okay. Bulgaria, I've chosen Bulgaria, one, because I like Slavic languages. I like the way Slavic languages sound. Bulgaria, from my little research, seems to be the most accessible language for English speakers, because it has certain grammar that other languages don't. Certain Slavic languages don't, which Slavic languages are really like inflected languages, and so it's a bit cumbersome to learn, or difficult to learn all of the conjugations and declensions. But Bulgaria is a little bit less daunting in that regard. Bulgaria also uses articles, which other languages don't. I don't know if that improves it, makes it easier to learn or harder to learn, but it is more similar to like English, Germanic language. Okay, so Bulgarian. And Bulgaria is one of the countries that I really want to visit. And I think like maybe I can retire in Bulgaria. I'm thinking like, if this country is suitable for me, obviously I'm speaking the language at a fluent level, even if it's a low level fluency. Yeah, like it's like a consideration for at least a language to live in for a few years, right? And maybe retire. I don't know. Okay, Kazakh. Kazakh, ninth largest country in the world, one of the least densely populated countries in the world. So great, because I don't like people. So put me around goats and horses, no problem. Provided I can make a living and survive, right? Okay, the Kazakh, the women are gorgeous, amazing. The Kazakh and Kyrgyz women to me are like, for some, I mean, all women are gorgeous, like Russian women, beautiful, Turkish women, beautiful, all countries. But like we all have our slight preferences, and my slight preference is towards Kazakh and Kyrgyz women. Amazing. Anyway, Turkic language now, Turkic language, Cyrillic alphabet. So that's two back-to-back Cyrillic alphabets. But I have no problem reading Cyrillic. I mean, I'm a slow reader in Cyrillic, but I can already read like Cyrillic. Like, put a Russian text in front of me, and I can butcher it in pronunciation, but you'll probably make out what I'm saying. Um, but it's going to be slow reading, and obviously there's going to be mispronunciations. Anyway, so Kazakh Cyrillic alphabet, but the Cyrillic alphabet is actually being switched over. I mean, they're gradually phasing back to a Latin alphabet. Yeah. So, but I think it's going to take time. But by the time I study Kazakh, who knows? I already have a Kazakh textbook. It's in Cyrillic. Um, anyway, 13 million overall speakers uh, in Kazakh. In Kazakhstan, people also speak Russian. I think it's still the dominant language there, especially in the major cities like Astana and Almaty. Um, especially among, I think, the young too. I think the young, but the Kazakh is making a comeback, right? Yeah, the national pride and the separation, like distancing themselves from the Russian occupation, is slowly like, yeah, bringing Kazakh back into the forefront. Anyway, um, but I have no political say on it. That's for them to decide, and I'm here for whatever they do. Now, next group of languages. Now, these I'm not committed to learning. I'm not saying I'm going to learn these one way or another, or but they are appealing to me for various reasons. Again, I like East Slavic languages, so Russian. And Russian is the most widely spoken East Slavic language. And the benefit of learning Russian is not only do you get to speak to Russians, you get to speak to all the other Stan countries, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, uh, Tajikistan, I think. Yeah. Okay, and so yeah, so learning Russian, as you can see, 255 million people worldwide speak Russian. Right. Okay, that's a huge, yeah, that's huge. Cyrillic, obviously another Cyrillic language. Okay, so three Cyrillic languages in a row. But again, I'm not necessarily going to learn these in a row. Urdu. Urdu is spoken in Pakistan. Pakistan's another like country I would think about. I'm thinking about visiting, but I don't think I would live there. But definitely visit. The people seem super gracious. The food looks amazing. And the benefit of learning Urdu is that you're essentially learning Hindi. And Hindi is going to be another 600 million speakers. 600 million speakers, right? At least 600 million speakers of Hindi, if not more. And then together with Urdu, that's another 230. So you're talking about close to a million speakers you can reach by speaking Urdu. And yeah, so Urdu. Urdu has an Arabic script. The Arabic script is not that hard to learn. I can somewhat already read Arabic, but I would need to refresh my Arabic. But yeah, so none of these alphabets are daunting. The only one that's daunting is the Japanese kanji. So that's why I'm sticking with Romaji. Okay, Swahili. Swahili is a Bantu language spoken in, I already forget which major countries in Africa speak Swahili, but it's a lingua franca in Swahili, kind of like a Lingala, but Lingala is spoken by less, but it's also a lingua franca Swahili. It's also highly inflected language. It's got a lot of vowel harmony, consonant harmony, so it sounds beautiful. If you've never heard someone speak Swahili, look it up on YouTube. And it's 100 million speakers. Albeit for myself here in America, I've never encountered, well, at least not that I know of, somebody who spoke Swahili. So how useful Swahili will be to me is it's really gonna like just depend on like if I can make online friends, like whether it's like a buddy somehow or a language exchange partner, but I'm not going to be paying a tutor to speak to me in Swahili. I mean, I will pay as part of my learning process, but after my low, let's say I attain a low level of speaking fluency, I'm not going to continue with a tutor to just right. Yeah, that's not going to happen. At one, I think that's just throwing money down the well, and then yeah, like I don't have that kind of money. So anyway, so yeah, Swahili, and the same thing with Urdu. Urdu, like who am I going to talk to? Russians, I feel like I can make language exchange friends from Russia. And I feel like in America I can find like maybe a Russian buddy or somebody that speaks Russian. Just Russian just seems like for Western culture that you're going to have a greater chance to make a language exchange partner in some kind of way without having to pay a tutor to constantly talk to you. Okay, now I like learning. I like the small languages. I like the languages that nobody like wants to learn. I don't know, like if the motivation is because I want to be some kind of elitist or kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe you speak that. Like, but this is what I'm calling the like, why did you choose this language? Like, and you could say that about Bulgarian and Kazakh too, and maybe even Urdu and Swahili. Anyway, but these are smaller. These are less widely spoken languages. Albanian is an Indo-European language, but it's its own branch on that tree. There are no other languages like Albanian, and I like the sound of Albanian, right? Faleminderit. Is that right? I don't even remember what language that's from. Anyway, so Albanian is on my list. Czech, another Slavic language. So if I have Bulgarian under my belt, or Russian, or both, obviously, but if I have either one, it's going to facilitate my learning of Czech. And it's the Latin alphabet, so easy for me. 13 million speakers, it's big enough. Like that's plenty enough. And I don't really care too much about that anyway, but it's plenty enough. And then, so yeah, Czech. Czech just has that really weird R sound, the zh, like Dvorak, like the zh. It's hard to make depending on where it is in the sentence. But other than that, it's phonetic and it's not hard to pronounce. Uzbek, another like, why are you learning this? I thought Uzbek was a Slavic language for a long time, but it's a Turkic language. Latin script, great. 32 million speakers, a lot more than I had thought. And again, I like the sound of Uzbek. And given that, let's say I learn Kazakh, like that's going to facilitate my learning of Uzbek. I almost put Turkish on the list because Turkish is obviously also a Turkic language, and Turkish is like 80 to 90 million speakers, so it's a widely spoken language. But I had to start like, yeah, I had to start cutting languages off the list, or it's already like it already seems like this is not going to happen. Like I think like if you put a realistic like and this is being generous to me, like that I would read 6 languages. Like if in my lifetime I can be fluent in 6 languages, I will be pretty content, and that's probably the most realistic thing. Um, but I want to get to at least I want to get to 9, like not just for number's sake, but because of the languages that I would get to include, like Russian. Like I want to be able to speak Russian, Urdu, Hindi, like yeah. And then Swahili. Um, and then these languages, like okay, if I never learn them, I mean, I would still be disappointed. Like I'll be still like a little bit sad that I didn't learn them, but yeah, like already speaking 9 languages, already trying to maintain 9 languages. And it might be that like let's say I learn Urdu, but I never get to use Urdu. And Urdu will slowly start to like I will start to lose Urdu. And so then maybe I'll just give up on Urdu and just take up Czech and then or take up Albanian, right? So anyway, we'll see. Okay, so this is generally the plan. Everything is tentative, I think, but the least tentative are 5 and 6 here. I want to learn these languages. So that hinges on my reaching an intermediate level, whatever that turns out to be roughly in Japanese. I've tried learning multiple languages at once. I can kind of do it. I kind of have some success, but once I take on 3 languages at once, like, yeah, my progress significantly slows down, and then I get discouraged, and I drop one altogether, and I end up focusing on one, but then I feel guilty, and I go back to the other. So since Latin is a mostly just written language, I mean, in the language you just read, you're not speaking it. I feel like I can take on Latin and Japanese, especially since I'm devoting 80% of my time to Japanese. Right. So Latin is not really taking away from my progress in Japanese. Okay. But once I can speak Japanese, I'm thinking maybe in like 7 or 8 months, and this is leading into my plan here, then I will take on either Bulgarian or Kazakh. Right now I'm leaning towards Bulgarian. That's why I put it number 5. Okay, now let's go to my 7-month plan. Now, let me say something. I want to qualify all this by saying this is my 7-month plan to reach a low fluency level in Japanese, and then I'm going to apply the same plan towards the other languages. Not for Latin, but for the other languages, the other living languages, let's say. This is a general outline of the plan. And so after weeks 1 and 2 and weeks 3 and 4, you can still incorporate stuff that you did earlier. In week 7 and in weeks 8 and 9, when you're like where it says memorize the lyrics of 3 songs, that doesn't mean you're not also learning vocabulary. That doesn't mean you're not also learning common expressions. That doesn't mean you're not also practicing your reading, right? You're still doing all that, but you're focusing primarily in that time accomplish this goal of learning the lyrics and memorizing the meanings of those lyrics to 3 songs. Okay, so let's get started. And I divided this up into weeks, and it finishes with week 28. So 28 divided by 7 is 4, or 4 weeks. So that's 7 months. After 7 months, the plan is done. After 7 months, the goal that the plan is that I will have reached a low fluency level. Okay, so let's begin. Weeks 1 and 2, you have to learn how to read the language. Right? Now, exception. I'm not learning hiragana, katakana, kanji. I'm learning Romaji, but I still have to learn how to read Romaji. Romaji still has its own reading rules. There's a certain way you read the Romaji so that you sound like like a Japanese speaker, right? You have to know that. So, okay. So weeks 1 and 2, learn to read the language, the alphabet, the punctuation, the main reading rules, especially important exceptions to general reading rules, right? Especially if the language is not phonetic. And listen to the language, right? You're going to want to pronounce those words or pronounce those letters correctly, so go on YouTube, right? And so I put the sources here on the right, right? The alphabet you can just get from ChatGPT, or you can just get from a textbook. And to listen, just go on YouTube. There will always be like your languages, somebody pronouncing the alphabet to your language and saying also basic readings. So we're going to use this later too. Okay, weeks 3 and 4. Learn the basic readings. Konnichiwa, ohayo gozaimasu, konbanwa, oyasumi nasai, o genki desu ka, genki desu. Onamae wa nan desu ka? Watashi wa Carlos desu. Anyway, things like that. Basic greetings, right? Mata ne, ja mata, sayonara, ohayo gozaimasu, sumimasen. Basic greetings in common expressions. Hi, ie, right? Mochiron, yabai, things like that. Okay. And that's where I'm at, basically, Japanese. I'm a little bit further because I've been studying some grammar, but not much. I can't form sentences yet, let's say, because I'm not anywhere near weeks 13 and 17, as you can see below in the red. Okay, for this, ChatGPT will be perfectly fine. Phrasebook will be perfectly fine. A textbook will be perfectly fine. And YouTube will be perfectly fine. Actually, YouTube will probably be one of the best things you can use because you will get the pronunciation. So I'll put YouTube here, number 1. All of these sources will be great to get you through weeks 3 through 4, which is the first month. So in the first month of your language, you're reading the language, you're pronouncing things fairly correctly, and if you've learned greetings and common expressions, you've learned yes, no, you've learned hello, goodbye, things like that. Okay, it's the first month. That's it. Now, the next 3 weeks, I'm studying now. I'm in this process. This is the stage I'm at right now. I'm studying vocabulary, right? I'm studying vocabulary. Sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. Mainly I'm studying grammar. The vocabulary is coming as part of the grammar that I'm reading, right? And the little sentences that I'm getting that are given as examples of the grammar, right? So I'm learning a little vocabulary that way. But the focus is the grammar. The focus is like, kore wa enpitsu de, kore wa pen desu, right? Kore wa, kore wa, kore wa hon desu, right? So I'm just learning basic sentences. Watashi wa Perujin desu, right? So basic sentences, um, with the grammar, and then I can substitute in different things, like I did with this is a pencil. I mean, this is a pen, and this is a book, right? Um, okay. You want to get familiar with the basic sentence structures, like this is A, like A is B or A does B, but it's going to be a lot of grammar to like A does B could include a lot of grammar. So we're not trying to be exhaustive here. We're just trying to get basic sentence structures. You're learning, like for me, I'm learning the particles, right? The wa, the ga, the ni, the o, the de, and then how to use them, and so I can identify them when I see them, and I kind of know the function when I see them in the sentence. And so it's helping me learn the grammar structure. So a basic grammar understanding. I'm right now using my textbooks, the two that I'm going to focus on that I've already showed you. And I choose ChatGPT exhaustively, like not exhaustively. I use a lot, right? I will type in an English sentence and then it'll give me the Japanese translation. And then I will ask ChatGPT, explain the grammar of this sentence, which is going to be in written Romaji. And then ChatGPT will lay it down, like it'll say like watashi is the pronoun I, watashi wa is the construction that introduces the topic of the sentence, and then and so on. And it'll give you the grammar. So anytime you're not sure, like even when you're studying, you're getting a sentence as you're studying your grammar, you're like, wait, I don't understand this fully, or the book doesn't explain it fully, or it's unclear. Like I use ChatGPT. Okay, so that's where I'm at right now. This is my current. I'm in the 5 weeks area of my learning Japanese. After I do this for like 3 weeks, weeks 5, 6, 7, 3 weeks, I will go to the next 2 weeks. And again, I'm going to continue learning grammar in weeks 8 and 9, but the focus and the goal is to, by the end of week 9, to have memorized 3 songs, right? And for me, it'll probably just be rap because, yeah, I'll get in, I think I can get in more words that way. And I enjoy rap, and yeah, Japanese rap. Like, I don't think you guys have, like, you got to listen to Japanese rap. Like, Japanese rap is its own thing. Anyway, and Korean rap similarly. But anyway, so I still enjoy rap music, occasional selective songs. But so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to find 3 rap songs, and that those songs I'm gonna have like playing, like you can vibe to them, or you could just have them playing in your background as you study if you're one of those people that can listen to songs while you're studying. Um, but the more I listen to them, my ears are getting used to the speed of Japanese, and I'm catching those words because I know when they're coming, right? I know the lyrics by heart, right? Or if I don't know the lyrics by heart, I know when I listen to the lyrics what they're saying, right? And so this is going to help you in the long run too. You need to develop your ears. So for me, this is the way I'm doing it. I don't sing. I'm not gonna sing. Some people sing, but that's great. If you sing and like you enjoy that, and like that's great. That would just be an easier way to like incorporate like songs and like, yeah, improving your ears and improving your vocabulary that way. So weeks 8 through 9, memorize 3 songs and then play them. I would put them in a loop and play them as I'm studying if that's what you enjoy doing. Okay, weeks 10 through 12, another 3 more weeks of grammar. I'm really fond of learning grammar. I don't like learning things and I'm like, you're kind of like guessing at the definitions, you're guessing at the meanings, and you just like puzzled, like this puzzlement sets in, and like it, to me, it's like it bothers me that I have this dissonance of like, okay, I'm like maybe it's not a dissonance, but like it's just upsetting. It just bothers me that I don't know what something is when I can easily know it if I just look it up, or if I right. So I like to learn the grammar. I like to learn the grammar. In the long run, you're gonna have to learn the grammar anyway. So I like to learn it early. And yes, this is very much against the theory that says you need to speak the language a lot. You should avoid grammar. But we're talking, yeah, anyway. So this is just my way. Weeks 10 through 12, grammar, more grammar. Okay. Now, I think the one major milestone in this process, or for I think maybe for any language learner, is when you can start to form your own sentences. And this is why I focused a lot on the grammar. I think I think a major milestone in learning a foreign language is you can form your own sentences, right? Maybe one familiar or a few familiar sentence patterns, and then you can just plug and play. You take out this noun, throw in another noun, you take out this verb, throw in another verb, you take out this object, throw in another object, and yeah, and you can grow the lexicon of sentences that are available to you, because you know the grammar and you're slowly building up your vocabulary. When you can express your own thoughts, right, make your own sentences, I think that's a milestone in language learning acquisition. And that's why I'm focusing so heavily on grammar, because I think that the grammar and the slow vocabulary building will get you there. Okay, yeah, you won't sound native. You won't and maybe you'll speak very poorly, right? But you're saying the right things, right? And if it's really just a matter of improving your pronunciation, like you can devote a month to that and get very good at pronunciation. Okay, you won't be able to maybe trill your R's like in Spanish, or you maybe won't be able to say that Czech, or other sounds, but what you're saying is grammatically correct for the most part. Like I doubt you'll be perfect, but for the most part you'll be. But you can expand the things you can say, and yeah, that is a key component of fluency, right? People ask you questions, and it's not rehearsed, it's not basic dialogue, and you can answer because you have the wherewithal, as far as grammar-wise, vocabulary-wise, to answer, provided you understand what they're asking you. But okay, that takes time with developing your ears. Okay, so as this to me is a major milestone, this is why the grammar, I put so heavy emphasis on grammar and vocabulary building. Okay, but I haven't forgotten about listening, and the pronunciation. I haven't forgot about, like, you want to sound roughly like the native speaker sound, roughly. Okay, next. After you've got accumulated a certain amount of vocabulary, after you know grammar, a grammar enough to form different sentences, I would start doing some graded readers. Now, graded readers are readers that are catered to your specific level of the language. So if you're like fairly a beginner, then beginning text, obviously. So self-explanatory, right? Reading is, I think, very important because, one, you'll see sentence structures and you build vocabulary because it's in context, right? Vocabulary in context is just, it becomes more memorable, and so it sticks. Excuse me. And so reading is still, like, I think, a major tool for language learning acquisition, or for language acquisition. So yeah, you're going to read that. And as a reader, yeah. Anyway, graded readers, I think, very important. And so I give here 8, 9, 10, 3 weeks. And again, it's just the primary focus. I can use all this stuff in other weeks, but this is the primary focus here. Then weeks 21 through 24. So for a whole month, the primary focus will be watching videos in the target language. For me, it's Japanese. Watch videos on YouTube, watch videos on Netflix without subtitles, or if it's going to be subtitled, well, for me, it will have to be in Romaji, right, in the target language. I like subtitles in hiragana, katakana, kanji will be useless to me because I will not be able to read them. Okay, I can identify certain hiragana, but who cares? I can't identify the rest of the word even, or let alone the whole sentence. So it'll have to be Romaji. But I'm okay if it's not Romaji. I'm okay with no subtitles. Yeah, because the Romaji is phonetic. So for me, no subtitle, it's almost the same thing. Because if I can understand what they're saying, like I know the spelling. Anyway, yeah. So you need to get your ears adjusted to the sounds of the language, the speed of the language, how natives talk, and that will allow you, when you start speaking, to mimic that. And as you're watching these videos, you should shadow. I'm not saying shadow the whole video, like that seems tedious, and that seems like, yeah, that doesn't seem like fun. But every once in a while, if there's a word that they're saying, and you're like, wait, how did they say that? What did they say? Like shadow that word, right? Or if there's just a word you want to particularly say, learn how to say better, shadow that word, right? Like if they say, for example, uh, hajimemashite, and you've been saying hajimemashite, like, and they're like hajimemashite, and then, oh, then shadow that hajimemashite, right? Right. So it's going to help you. Shadowing is going to help your speaking later, but you don't need to shadow everything, right? I think people like overdo the shadowing, right? Like you don't need to shadow people saying konnichiwa. Like how badly are you saying konnichiwa that you need to learn how they say it? Now, later, yes, the like the inflection of the language, the rhythm of the language, which is the high pitch, which is the low pitch. Like, is it Ohio or is it Ohio or is it like where is the right? To sound more native, you're gonna want to learn that. But I think for the beginning, if you're like Ohio or Ohio, like you're fine. Like you're fine. Like everybody's gonna understand you. They already know you're a beginner because you're roughly a beginner, or they know you're a low intermediate because you're roughly a low intermediate. Like so, like there's no sense. I mean, not that there's no sense, but like you working extra hard to sound like a native to say Ohio or arigato, arigato. Like, is it worth the effort? Is it worth the effort? Like, you're gonna say all the other things wrong, or not wrong. You're gonna say all the other things like somebody that's intermediate would say, but you'll say arigato like beautifully. Like, okay. And then if you want to say all the things beautifully, like that's a lot of effort, like especially in the beginning stages. And it all comes at a cost, right? It's economics, right? You devote a lot of time to one thing, you can't devote it to these other things that you could be devoting it to. So you have to prioritize, and this is part of the plan. I'm prioritizing in certain weeks certain things, and I'm also, yeah, prioritizing just making myself understandable and having a rough like pronunciation, like then going for complete native sounding pronunciation. But it's still a worthwhile goal, but it's just when you want to pursue that part of your plan. Okay, and then finally, you can form sentences. You can roughly now catch what is being said in Japanese. I'm speaking of Japanese. Now, I think now is the optimal time to start speaking with some kind of language exchange partner. If you have a friend, great. If you have a boyfriend, girlfriend, even better. If your friend is your boyfriend, girlfriend, I'm not big on that, but anyway, maybe that suits you. Or you need to hire a tutor, right? And I'm perfectly okay with hiring tutors, but in my history of trying to learn languages, I always hire tutors too soon. Like I've had tutors teach me konnichiwa. I'm like, why am I paying for this? I can get this on YouTube for free. And not even YouTube for free. I can get YouTube, the YouTube person will repeat it over and over as many times as I want, right? And without me feeling guilty or stupid to ask them to do this, or I'm wasting my money to do it, right? I recommend, my recommendation is like, because I'm a heavily vocabulary and grammar and reading initially, like my plan is that, like I would recommend you avoid tutors initially, like until this is the last week. This is week 7, right? This is week 7. I'm sorry, this is month number 7. The first 6 months, I wouldn't pay for a tutor. You're going to get more benefit when you can speak to the tutor and they're asking you questions in their native way. Maybe they slow down for you, and then you can, you have impromptu conversations and you're forced to think things through. You're going to make mistakes, but then you fix these mistakes. But like, what is the purpose of paying a tutor to teach you konnichiwa, ohayo gozaimasu, arigato, kore wa pitsu desu? Like, you don't need a tutor for that. I mean, if you have the money, like, it's not going to hurt you. I'm just saying it's not really like, you can substitute a free and maybe even better method than a tutor for the initial stages of what you want. Now, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I just hire good-looking women to tutor me in like French, Swahili, Urdu, Arabic, Russian, Czech, whatever, right? Like if they're affordable enough for me, and I want to learn the language through them. Like I've done that. I've done that. Trust me, I've done that. But it has not proven effective. Whether it's on my end, the fault is on my end, or whether the fault is on the method, or whether the fault is with the tutor. It's rarely the tutor's fault. It's usually the method is not the right method, or sometimes we just don't have like the dedication for it. But from my experience, and I've done enough, like for my to know that speaking with tutors or just speaking in general early, there's not a lot of benefit to be derived. You will get more out of that same experience later once you come equipped with a certain amount of grammar behind you, a certain amount of vocabulary, and an ability to form sentences, and your ear has developed, right? So yeah, and that goes for language exchange partners. I've also seen people who are like, hey, let's be language exchange partners, and one person is an intermediate level and the other person is a beginner, and that is boring as hell. You're not a good language exchange partner if you're a beginner. You're basically having people teach you the language. You're not really conversing and exchanging and getting to know each other, like two people who spoke at the same level, like at a low intermediate level would be. So yeah, so I would put off speaking, put off speaking until the seventh month. Okay, that's it. That's my plan. Now again, the caveat or the is that this plan, I'm not presenting you a plan that's tried and true. I have not used this plan to successfully learn Japanese. As I said, I'm only in the week 5 stages of my Japanese. I'm in the vocabulary building and not heavy, but yeah, kind of like primary primary focus of grammar study in Japanese. I will start to maybe like after like the end of week 2. I don't know if I want like if this will be interesting, but maybe it might be interesting in the sense that you will see my progress and you will see whether this method, provided I'm following the method and I'm true to the method, works, right? Like once you like if I follow this plan and then I update my progress maybe every week, maybe every 2 weeks, and you see like my Japanese improving, like, oh, he sounds more fluent. Oh, he can say a lot more things now. Oh, he can just talk off the cuff more. And he's definitely improving. His Japanese is definitely. And then at the end of week 7, and I have a low level fluency, but whatever that amounts to, like we all have slightly different definitions of what that means. But if you're like, oh, I wish, yeah, that's a worthwhile achievement. That's a worthwhile goal. I want to reach that level too, and I can do it with if I follow probably I can probably do it. Let's say with this 7 month plan, and so it worked for him, and I'm going to try this plan. So yeah, it will give my plan some what do we call it? I don't know what to call it, like some clout. You know what I mean? Anyway, so that's it. All right. So I will. I don't know how like it would be actually for me to videotape my progress. I was thinking of videoing study lessons and uploading them, but that would be boring as hell. Um, just looking at my ugly face for like an hour, 2 hours. And like, how do I update grammar? Like, I can't really update grammar videos. I mean, I can explain grammar stuff as I learn them. Maybe I can do that. Maybe I can make videos like explaining the grammar that I've learned. Um, but for these songs, like, okay, maybe I can like, I don't know. I don't think I can use songs on YouTube, so like, I wouldn't be able to show you that. Um, and then more grammar. So again, just more sentences. So yeah, like I don't know, like what kind of like if I were a good-looking girl, you wouldn't mind watching my videos of me learning or studying, or if I had a high fluency level, you wouldn't mind listening to me because you'd actually think like the things that I say were like, yeah, there was more behind them, and you give more credence to the things I say. Although I could be bullshitting you, I could be saying I'm using a certain study method, but I could have like 5 years of background in Japanese, and like suddenly, oh my God, his method is working. No, I was just holding back, right? Anyway, so yeah, so I'm not sure about how videos would go. But I think every month of my speaking Japanese and off the cuff, like obviously if it's authentic, if it's not, I'm not scripting it, then yeah, then you can see my progress. And eventually, I think you can tell people's progress just by because they start speaking off the cuff, and you could tell it's not rehearsed, or they speak so much and they change the subject so much, it's not that that can't be rehearsed. They would just be highly impressive if they did rehearse that, and so it just sounds like genuine, like yeah, fluency. Okay, so that's it. That's it. That's the goal. Um, I already have books for like a lot of these languages actually. Bulgarian, Kazakh, Russian, Urdu, Swahili, Albanian, Uzbek not so much. Um, okay, so if you're currently learning a foreign language, um, yeah, I'd like to know what it is and which textbook you're using, if you're using a textbook. Yeah, I really like. I'm into textbooks of foreign languages. I have a couple of hundred, I would say. Yeah, I'd like to know which ones you're using. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna click, and then I can sign off. Click, and sign off. Jamata.